Welcome everyone to the Path of Exile community podcast, Faded Connections. This is episode number 35, where BalorMage and myself welcome guests to discuss Path of Exile topics in a relaxed setting on a bi-weekly rhythm. Since the podcast is constantly growing, I'd like to not only say hi to the live audience here on twitch.tv/CatmasterOP, but also extend the warm welcome to the viewers on youtube.com/BalorMage, as well as all the listeners on the various podcast platforms that we can be found on. Morning, day, afternoon, evening, and night, everyone. Hi, Tuna. How have you been?
Hello. I've been doing really good, man.
Thanks for coming on.
It's my pleasure.
It's awesome.
It's
What custom league are you going to play? What race are you going to play this league? Now that with all the China stuff going on.
I was thinking about playing on Badgers League, but I don't know. I kind of really enjoy playing like through the entire league, and the main thing for me is that it's sort of like I'm one of those gamers that sort of wishes the leagues would be longer and that the content was more plentiful within those longer leagues, so I would have more things to work towards. But like the fact that we're like these constant resets, that's the maybe one thing that I wish wasn't so like common. So for me, like racing has never been that interesting to some extent. I've always been more in engaged with like challenge type, longer format things. If that
so
makes
you
sense.
enjoy working towards a bigger goal, like step by step over a large period of time, as opposed
exactly,
to
because I've
like
always
just
been
bursting.
a very RPG grind type oriented gamer. That's how I've always been, essentially. So that's what I really enjoy. Instead of like really big bursts, like I like the endurance runs kind of thing.
Okay, right.
That
A
makes
marathon, basically.
Right.
Awesome. Yeah. So that means that Harvest probably. Well, it could go either way. Now, did Harvest make that more? Like, did Harvest have things that appeal to you in this kind of way? Or did you not find appeal? Because on the one hand, I could see that, the grind towards the Harvest boss and the grind towards the perfect gear has been made easier, which could be like just cutting off so much from your journey. But on the other hand, like with the power that we have and the min-maxing that you can do with the powerful crafting in Harvest, I could also see you playing longer or like optimizing builds longer and seeing more min-maxing potential.
It goes both ways. Like all the builds that I've made in the past have just been improved like tenfold, right? And they're so much stronger. But from also a very grinder perspective, which is not going to be like the very how other people experience the game, obviously, because of how many hours I put in or how determined I am to grind things out to make what I need, right? Like I've SSF'd basically all my crafts this entire league just by spamming maps and things like that, and I've still been able to just min max every single character. Like aside for like when I'm like, oh, I'm out of life, like let's get like 2 or 3 life rerolls, or like if I really needed like an influence reroll here and there, then I've done that. But for like let's say like 98% of my crafts, I've completely SSF this league, and I'll be honest with you. I think it's more everything's been cut short because of how easy it has been to obtain everything and how strong it's made all your characters. And it would be really nice to be able to sort of have a goal where you could go for harder and harder content. But currently in the game, there isn't that sort of thing that proposes that challenge where it's like, this is the incredible challenge that you got to overcome to put these insane characters to push them towards, right? Like you could do T19 maps, which is actually what I'm doing now, like 100% delirious T19 maps.
Yeah, with that unique sextant.
Yeah, exactly. Which is like doesn't consume sextants and really big juice and stuff.
Wait, it doesn't consume sextants?
You can put an enchant on a map where it doesn't consume
and then you fracture fossil the map over and over.
Exactly. And I've been SSFing it actually for like 2 weeks, since I've pushed to like 6k delve this league.
Wait,
and
so like now you started fresh in SSF? Or you just didn't trade in Trade League?
I'm in Trade League, but like I was running like Scarab Sextants, so sorry, not Scarab Sextants, the skittering orbs on my maps. to sustain my sulfide fragments and the fragments that I needed for my maps. So I was getting all my scarabs for my maps as well as delving, and when I'm out of fracture fossils, I go back to delve to fracture the map again, and just basically the cycle goes on. We're just fracturing maps and going over and over again. And it's been pretty cool. That's like one thing that like I've enjoyed doing more this league, just because of how easy it is to make such insane characters with the crafting mechanic and not really having to trade for your gear and things like that, right? Which is a really nice aspect to it. But
Yeah, my gear has never been better in SSF. Like from my
it's
SSF
pretty
perspective,
insane.
It's nuts. I mean, I also had a fair bit of luck with some crafts, but it's just you can consistently and I die a lot. You know me. Like I play HCSSF and I do stupid things with my characters. I just try
That's part of the game.
Yeah, but sometimes I feel like I should be playing softcore instead, because then I could do all those stupid things without consequences. Like I had this character that I played to 95 this league, like a Caustic Arrow CI build with like 12,000 ES, and I was like basically unkillable while normal farming because I had so much recharge and just such a I don't know, bow characters can play so defensively and you're so agile, you could just, position one way and ES recharge kicks in so fast if you scale it. You got such an easy time this league crafting good ES jewels. You can get all these implicits with which you can also scale energy shield recharge on the recharge, on the jewels, yeah. So you can get some quite insane values. I mean, I did find a Blightwell, which was like the first time in basically ever since it exists. It's just this unique amulet talisman that makes your energy shield recharge, I think, increases it by 400% during flask effect. So I did have an insane amount, like 14,000 recharge per second. It took like almost a second to kick in, but yeah. Anyway,
when it does kick in, you're unkillable. Basically, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, for 4 seconds, because obviously you're taking Wicked Ward, so it can't be interrupted if it began recently. And so I didn't get killed until I was like, yeah, fuck it, we're going into Awakener with the build, and I didn't practice enough. I made some stupid moves. I lost focus of him, I didn't know where he was on the screen, and then I just didn't log out, and bam, died. But I definitely got along.
Awakener.
Do you have experience with Awakener? How much did you fight him? Because I know that normally you prefer to spend like a majority of your time in Delve.
Yeah. I fought him a lot of times. I don't particularly enjoy fighting him, so I don't really ever go out of my way to farm him or anything like that. Especially in Trade League, where the value of an item is completely diluted by how accessible it is, and Awakener being like the most accessible boss means nothing is worth anything essentially from him. Like at most you're bound to get like, even now that the Legion sword, I forget the name,
the Savior,
is like in the Savior has been like really nerfed. I think it's like 40 chaos, for example.
Yeah,
I think you're really banking on
like
just getting
the pinnacle of drops.
Right. Now you're just banking on maybe getting like an Awakened multi-strike or something like that, which by the way, like I've known people that have like carried like 400 of them and never seen it. So statistically I'm never gonna be able to see it in a league unless I'm like actually target farming. So there's no incentive for me to go out of my way to do that sort of content, because I have to sacrifice like my mapping strategy, and I have to play in a certain way which I don't particularly enjoy. AKA just basically just alking going, right? Like any red map until you proc your thing, do the bosses, go do Cirrus, and it doesn't feel like as rewarding as Uber Elder, because Uber Elder was a lot more of a you're sort of rolling the dice on the Watcher's Eye, and that could always be anywhere between like 5 chaos to like 3 mirrors, 4 mirrors if you're lucky, right? And I think that aspect to it, even if you know you're not gonna get it, like again statistically you're never gonna get it. I used to farm Uber Elder a lot, never got a 3 mod, but
wait, was it isn't it guaranteed to get a 3 mod for Uber Elder?
I mean, like for example, like
good,
triple
good
hatred,
3 mods,
right?
Okay, yeah.
Like
I thought you meant like you never got a 3 mod.
No, yeah, it's guaranteed to get it. But at least there was that aspect of it where you're just like, you get that dopamine kick. You're there, like, I got my Watcher's Eye, I'm gonna ID it. Is it trash? Yes, but still, then you go again, and that's the fun aspect to it. I think
Yeah, that's
that we're
true.
sort of missing from the end game boss at the moment.
Watcher's Eyes are really good, but isn't the Thread of Hope also a drop from Cirrus?
Yeah, but the most expensive one would probably be like a medium with 10% elemental res, and that's like 80 chaos, right?
Okay, so it's just from a trade league perspective, it's not super
Yeah,
valuable.
yeah, in Trade League, because everything you do in Trade League is sort of determined by, is it worth it? And that's kind of like one of the big flaws of Trade League and why I've just been just not trading, right? It's that you're thinking to yourself, well, why would I try to target farm this thing that I potentially need for my build when I can just like, just buy it and
Yeah, you
save myself
convert
like maybe 3
every
days of
investment.
grief.
In your head, you convert every investment and every possible return into just the chaos value, basically the economic value.
Exactly.
And weigh it against
Opportunity
each other.
cost kind of thing, exactly.
Yeah,
So that's I think the biggest flaw with Trade League essentially is always knowing in your head that why would I target farm something if I can just get it off the trade market? And that's sort of like also what Chris Wilson has been saying with like the fact that he doesn't want an auction house. And the easier you make things the easier you make something like accessible, right? The more it dilutes the value of that thing that you're trying to get, right? Which is a big problem I think currently in Path of Exile that I wouldn't know how to address. But I think it's also like a lot of these crazy crafts this league, uh, like good crafts have been completely made. Like good craft is terrible now because you could just go on like the Forbidden Harvest and the crafters can just get thousands of crafts here on demand, even though they weren't technically supposed to be tradable. They've been made so through player services, like through a very convenient overlay and things like that. Just being able to like literally just whisper people and you instantly get a trade and you get whatever you need at whatever price. And that's all that people are doing, just running seeds and farms, saving crafts, selling crafts. So it just makes the value of everything that's not perfect terrible. Like to give you an idea, like there's boots that I mirrored last league.
Like in terms of rare items, absolutely. I mean,
right.
You can make items that previously were mirror tier, and because everyone can make them, they're not mirror tier anymore.
Yeah, and that's amplified by the fact that people can just buy crafts on demand, right? Because if you actually had to farm the crafts, then the time you'd have to put into those crafts would be sort of like integrated into the value of the item itself. Because everything is all about like how much time do you spend doing it, and what do you get out of it, essentially. And so, yeah, I bought like those boots that I mirrored last league for 12x this league, which is, it's a lot to do with the fact that like how like mod groups work, right? Slam crit twice on your boots, you're guaranteed tailwind and elusive because those are only crit mods.
Do you think? I just read chat. Do you think non-tradable seeds would have fixed it? I think it's more about like the fact that the crafts are tradable, right? That you can craft on someone else's item.
Yeah, I don't think non-tradable seeds would have fixed it because a lot of the big crafters they have like map runner builds that essentially just run to the seed pile, pick it up, and bring it back to their hideout, right? Like they're not technically buying the seeds themselves; they're also farming them. So it's the cycle of farm the seeds, grow the beds, basically like kill the monsters on another build, and then sell the crafts. So like you're running really fast. You're feeding your garden 3 or whatever, however so many cycles with a super fast build. Because the faster the build, the faster the cycles, the more crafts you'll get, right? So I think untradable seeds wouldn't have fixed it. It essentially is something that can't be fixed because of how items work in PoE. I trade you something. How is PoE gonna know this is not your item? I'm not gonna let you craft on it, right? So untradable craft is just impossible.
In trade league, you can't.
Yeah. So it's just I feel like a fundamental issue with the system that just gives too much power. Like, and also with I don't actually know. It's such like difficult. It's such a difficult topic because from a gamer perspective, I might be able to point out what the issue is, but I in no way have any idea how this could be fixed. Right? Like I just have no idea because of how many interactions there is in this game, especially PoE. It's so complex, and we've gotten to the point where it's like you make one thing like this, and then it just like everything tips on the other. Like everything just tips, or it's like it's such a balancing act of just a lot of things, a lot of mechanics that interact with each other.
So I basically can already read into your answer that you can't wait. You don't want it to go core. You wouldn't want harvest crafting in its current form in the game.
I don't know. I really like the crafting. I just think I think some aspects of it should go core. The garden aspect, I don't think should really because I feel like it's like, for example, like, why do I have to put down 300 Horty benches and then pick them up and then put them in my stash?
That's my biggest gripe with the design of the league. It's so silly. It could have been just like Delve, like a tab that you get in your tab.
Right.
And you can just upgrade your slots there and upgrade your storage there. Why do they have to be physical items that I have to micromanage in a garden?
I guess it adds some sort of like gameplay time, right?
It adds some sort of mini micromanagement enjoyment, but it gets old really quick, and it totally doesn't feel like Path of Exile, which is, I think, the biggest problem with it. Like, I didn't mind the endgame system in Synthesis, for example, with like putting puzzle pieces together to make your own sort of dungeon, right? In the what was it called? The Memory Nexus, because that felt like Path of Exile, but like micromanaging the garden, I think it's fine for this league. I like to play, like, stray away a little bit from the core gameplay that I usually enjoy, and to just put a different twist on it. But I wouldn't want to have that in like as a permanent edition. Definitely.
I think the problem with these sort of mechanics is that like it seems like there's a disconnect between like philosophy and practicality, and essentially, like, because it's like in practice you'd think to yourself, yo, wouldn't it be cool if people are allowed to like make their own layouts and min-max how they want and things like that? And you think to yourself, yeah, but it's 2020 and meta games are a thing and people don't care about anything but the best. Like, why would someone do something that's not optimal when they can just, I don't know, go to Reddit, look at the latest layout and just copy exactly what it is? And if you keep this in mind, I feel like you should just sort of embrace the fact that a metagame is going to be there, and instead of like creating these systems where like where you think that people are going to engage with the system with like this sort of like mentality of I'm just going to be creative and do what I want, you should sort of just embrace it and create systems that just embrace the fact that a metagame is going to be there. So what's the point of making you jump through 10 hoops to just have the same layout as everyone else, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably a problem that could have been solved by like randomly generating the growth for everyone instead of giving everyone the same base map. Like that everyone would have the same surface area but in a slightly different shape. But then it could have quickly been unfair in some way or another.
That's
like
true,
that guy has a better one, that guy has a better one. But yeah, it could have been a more individual solution to the garden problem. That would have been interesting. Yeah, I think I agree with you there. I didn't write that down as a talking point, but I think that's really good thing to say, that it became stale really quick. Because the first 2 days were fun. Everyone was trying to figure out the minigame, right? But then I think Harvest was more short-lived in total than any other league in terms of like pure league content.
Yeah, because if you think about it, aside from the crafting, the content doesn't really exist, right? Like,
well, you have the end game boss, you have the avatar of the grove, and you have the optimizing your garden. But if you go onto Reddit, you figure that out really quickly within the first week, and then there's just nothing for you to go deeper into. Like, it's basically the opposite of Delve.
Like the problem with that, I think, like the end game boss is like, I don't mind it being gated behind 100 maps. I think it's fine. Generally, it goes faster than you even think, right?
100 maps and nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you could do that in like, I don't know, you need to play like 2 hours a day. You could do that in like 3 days or something. But the problem is that like what is it in real, like what is realistically drop? Like RPGs have always been sort of like carrot and stick approach to grinding, right? Like you always gotta have something like, yo, if you kill a monster, it has a chance of dropping a mirror, you know, like. But the boss is one monster, right? So statistically, it's never gonna drop a mirror, and also, it's like the items that it does drop, which are uniques that the developers have been creating, I think for the last like 2 or 3 leagues, they're just terrible. Like they can't be used in any sort of situation. Then there's no real like incentive to wanting to do this boss. Like I don't know how a hardcore player would be like, oh yeah, I want to farm this boss, which could potentially kill me. For what? You know? The only real good thing that it drops is the buds, right? The flowers and things like that, which are really useful. But you don't even have to do that to kill them, right? And a solution to that would be, okay, no buds drop from T3, T4 beds, only from the boss. But then you get a bunch of complaining Andes be like angry at the fact that they never have access to these things when the rich players can just buy them or whatever, right?
Yeah, I suppose the tradability aspect. In so many
It's
ways,
always,
the
it always
game would
comes
be
down to this
easier.
issue.
Yeah, the game would be easier to balance if there was no trade.
Definitely. No, I completely agree. But then again, it's also like trade is one of the most beautiful things about the game too. Like, and one of the things that you think about, like Diablo 3, for example, where there's no tradability whatsoever, it really sucks. Like, it really sucks. I really like this aspect of just being like the crafter, the mercher. You're doing these things, you're finding value in items that other people don't, and you're able to have like a sort of like a keen perspective on like the sort of like what the player base wants in terms of like meta items, and being able to like, you know, to enjoy that sort of gameplay and things like that. And I think trade is one of the coolest things about the game, but at the same time, it's also one of the things that hurts it the most. And I think, uh, you know, I think being so one-sided about it would be short-sighted, because I know it might piss people off that I'm like, oh yeah, like trade is, you know, probably very detrimental to the game. And they're like, well, trade is the best thing about the game. It's true, but it's also false. You know,
Well, it's like Chris
it
Wilson
goes
says.
both ways.
I think he said that a couple of times on interviews already. Is like the theoretical idea that your item could be traded away for currency makes the item have much more value for you
Yeah,
than
definitely.
just, you know, like yeah.
But it also goes both ways. Like,
Yeah, that's true. It also goes both ways. If you can just buy it and replace it, then it's not as special if you have it and you lose it.
definitely.
Yeah. No,
Like,
I definitely agree with that. Like coming from my SSF adventures and everything, when I, you know, lost back to that CA character, I lost the Blightwell, I lost the energy shield recharge quiver, which is called Soul Strike, and
yeah,
I lost my 6-link bow that I crafted for +3 and all that stuff. And all these items had like a special connection to me, right? I mean, the 6-link bow I
definitely.
could farm back up and I could craft it easily with harvest crafting, right? But for example, the unique talisman I'll never get back. Probably not this league. Probably not next league. Probably going to be
Yeah.
the one and only time that I'm going to be able to play that particular item combo, and that does
I
make
think
it
that adds a
special.
lot of really interesting gameplay elements, like SSF. The fact that you like, um, you know, you're always sort of like, you drop an item, you think to yourself like, that could be something that I could, you know, potentially use, right? Like, if you drop a Kikazara in Trade League, you just don't even pick it up, right? But if you think to yourself like, you're playing SSF, then you're like, yo, that could be useful for something in the future, and you stash it, and you're like, you know, excited about getting these items and stuff that potentially on Trade League nobody would ever even look at. I think that's a really nice element to SSF. Also because you're just always grinding towards improving, and it really extends the grind, right? Because you
Actually,
just,
in SSF, I don't pick up that much stuff anymore this league, unless I want to farm alterations, because harvest crafting has made the average rare that you pick up and identify so much worse than what you can like easily make yourself. So you're just
right.
looking for basis
That's
more and
true,
for
yeah.
crafting currency. But I really enjoy the fact that, you know, I look at it like this: like every league has like some very rewarding aspect to it that helps people get into the game more easily. And in the last couple leagues, it was mostly loot pinatas, like ramping up to delirium. It became pretty insane what you get back, and especially if you roll the currency type, you get like 5 to 10k value, 5 to 10c value per delirium at least in pure currency
Definitely.
drops. And then you had all the rares on top and the other like scarabs and all that stuff. It was insane. And the leagues before that were also pretty strong, but I think delirium more than any other league gave you a lot of currency to work with. And so I already felt like last league I was crafting a lot because I just had all this currency around that I normally wouldn't have. And I find it cool that this league I don't get my league rewards as straight up drops, or like at least not as straight up drops in the map, but then you have like this sort of delayed incubation mechanic for added monsters in, you know, a map 5 maps from now because you planted the seeds. And then you get these not only the obviously you get some drops from the monsters, and it can be really rewarding in juiced maps to farm up your garden with delirium and stuff. You get so much more ramp up. That's also super OP, by the way, that the fog stops in the garden. Find that a little bit silly.
Because you know what the strategy is for big farm groups is they don't really plant like big beds, but they plant like the small beds everywhere.
Okay.
So that when they have their 100% delirium maps, they have like, I don't know, like say like 20 beds to pop, right?
So many additional monsters for additional delirium rewards. Yeah, and potential cluster jewel drops and stuff.
Yeah, so they just buy seeds from quarry runners to then just plant en masse and get an insane amount of juice.
Oh, that's ridiculous. And it's also mostly white monsters, so Biscos is really strong in the Grove, right?
Yeah, I mean the thing is that when you're talking about like the groups, right? Not the solo farmers, but the groups, the carries, he's got rarity on everything because they're farming like Headhunter, right? Specifically, so there's rarity on every single item that they have, and you know it makes the prospect of dropping a Headhunter like very very high. So there's people that'd be dropping like 2 Headhunters a map or something like that, right? Which is ridiculous.
Yeah, I've seen the clips. It was I don't want to say the word. It was a poop fest on GFL this league with like tons of clips of people dropping mirrors and headhunters, all kinds of
Definitely.
stuff. Yeah, the juicing is insane.
It's never been this powerful because of being able to fracture beyond on your map with then being able to just mirror that over and over again. And so it's just in a league where there's no beyond, where you can guarantee beyond, roll a sextant with beyond, and then an enchant on your map that says does not consume sextant charges. So you have permanently sextants which take you like 150 sextants to usually roll, right? Like the set of 4 will take you around 150 awakened sextants. So for them to never be consumed and to be able to just like run that map over and over again, it's pretty insane.
Yeah.
You're
yeah,
able to get, like,
again, like a very
reward.
trade thing because getting all that stuff together in SSF, you can't keep it up, right?
And in hardcore, like not at all because you can't even run the maps, right?
You can't. Do they die a lot in those maps?
Yeah, absolutely. The monsters will just absolutely destroy you. I think maybe if you have
they're 100% delirium maps, right?
Yeah,
like,
if you have like the most
top.
insane like 100 or a stacker or something, but even they're at a very high risk of dying, right? So that's the sort of stuff that in hardcore I don't know if people are actually even that interested in farming.
I don't know what the most intense juicy stuff is that people are touching in hardcore. But yeah, like, I can't even imagine getting to the point where I'd like do that on really high maps and go 100% delirium. Probably not even. Like, probably like, 40, 60 maybe. But seems.
I know that people used to be able to run self curse, right? But like now self curse has been like in hardcore. I mean, which I know people that used to just farm self curse builds in hardcore, get to 100 and stuff. But now it's sort of like really not that good anymore. Sure, it's really strong. Like you can still self curse temp chain, but in comparison to what it used to be, it's you have to sacrifice so much to that your character is not really ever going to be able to have a sort of a defense to be able to survive outside of when you have like a lot of buffs, right? So
The curse scaling is more expensive. Like the only thing I remember from the patch notes was they made it so that when you steal hexproof, you can actually not have yourself cursed anymore. So you can only, I think,
You can play occultist.
you can play occultist or you can use a cost priest, right? Because then curses can also apply to hexproof enemies. I bet it's hexproof
Right.
enemies. I don't know. I don't know whether that works, but
I'm not sure if it's an oversight or anything like that, but essentially, like, yeah, because you can apply curses to hexproof, it's still reflected to you, so you're always gonna be cursed. And
yeah.
as in cultists and things like that. Which,
Yeah,
by
I
the
know
way,
that
this
occultist works. I heard about that, but I'm not sure whether cost priest works.
awaken curse on it. Does that work as well? I don't think that works. Somebody told me it doesn't.
Oh,
I might be wrong because I don't really mess around
gotta
with.
have something to test it.
I don't mess around with self curses much, right? But me as a player that just likes to make a really good build and then put a head on it just because it's a good belt, pretty good belt. This hexproof thing is a very big buff to my builds because then I don't even have to bring a warding flask anymore because the first pack I hit is gonna give me hexproof. That's like, and so I'm just like chilling, It's like 10 chains on the map, no worries. Vulnerability, no worries. Ellie weak, no worries. Hit the first pack, you're hexproof, and then you're off.
The first pack always has a hexproof in your maps.
Essentially, it's like if you're running the Nemesis mod, it's gonna be like every other pack,
Yeah, and
right?
you got
So,
Beyond on there, so they did instantly
right.
spawn a bunch of rares as well, right? Yeah, pretty sick. But yeah, coming back to the harvest crafting at the power level, so extremely insane at the top end and probably absurd, and that's one of the reasons it can't and shouldn't stay. But what I wanted to emphasize is that outside of our extreme no-lifer perspective, there's probably a whole bunch of people who are really getting into Path of Exile endgame this league for the first time as deep as as deep as never before, because they're finally able to craft some good items without like no-lifing trade and without like getting super hard into the game. The access to power that Harvest gives you is pretty juicy.
It's amazing. But really, don't get me wrong. Like, I actually really like the mechanic.
The
I
mechanic?
really
Wait, we gotta
enjoy
separate the crafting or the
the
garden
crafting.
mechanic. Okay. You like the
I
crafting.
really love the crafting aspect to it, and I like the fact that it's sort of like gated behind time and things like that. So you sort of like, I have like, okay, for a week I'll farm seeds and save all my crafts, and then I can make a new character, and then I can just burst out like all the crafts that I need in like a couple days for a new character, and that's really nice, man. I've been able to make like builds like so much better than I would have ever imagined I would have been able to make them, right, in the past. But the problem is that there's sort of nothing to take those builds and put them up against. It just feels like there's no actual challenge in the game. We're adding so much power creep, but the monsters stay the same, right? Like, so it's we're coming to a problem now where it's like, why does it matter if like,
That's
it's true,
rough.
there's an aspect of satisfaction when you blow up like 12 screens instead of 10, but you're still blowing up 12 screens. It's still blowing, as like it's gotten too easy. And
That's sad because we just have like a huge monster and enemy boss buff where they also got all more resists and reduced.
But that felt
curse
like it was
effect.
more prevalent while leveling, and past that when you're in maps, it didn't feel like it was that bad at all.
With the China race and like the upcoming Zizaran Gauntlet race with the all damage mods, custom mods activated, I started in a private league for practice yesterday. And like someone made like a China race play along league with all the same mods just on the Western server, because I kind of refuse to play on China. Like I want Western race events. I don't even see why that's not a thing. Why do we Western people have to go and play on Tencent servers with like a VPN and like separate accounts and stuff? Can we not just?
Yeah.
I'm not buying the fact that it costs too much development time or anything. I'm also still not believing that it hurts player retention. I think like racing is so
me neither.
essential to Path of Exile public perception. Like whenever there's big races, the viewer numbers on the Twitch directory spike. People are really into that sort of stuff. And
Um,
and I think for every person that burns out on a race and doesn't start in the next league because of that, there's at least like 3 people who watched the race and are like super eager to start in the next league and to buy supporter packs and to get good at the game because they got hyped
definitely.
by watching the race.
I think so. I think so. But like I do understand why like the developers are not making races for our for like the Western races.
You
I
do?
feel like
Okay, you know something that I
it's
don't, clearly.
well, it's simply because like they're developing for they're developing like the entire game, right? And they have a team like a team dedicated to this, and then they give the game to Tencent, and Tencent has its own development team, which is just there to create basically seasonal events or like their shop, for example, and things like that. So like
Okay,
the team for
that's a
the
reason why
Westerners,
Tencent has races, but that's not a reason for
exactly.
why Western events don't exist.
It's because they sort of feel like it would take development time away, and like I just trying to see it from their perspective. Like, sure, they could hire like 3 people to make this, right? But I feel like they just feel like they can't because, in their perspective, these 3 people could actually put to better work, right, to developing like the future content rather than, which is like I don't know, man. It's I'm just trying to sort of justify why we don't have them. But I also hate the fact that we have to go play on the Tencent server because I personally I don't have anything against Tencent, but I have something against their philosophies, which is pay to win and all this sort of stuff. And I feel like we should sort of like embrace the Western client and how good it is, rather than just going out and playing on their shit.
Yep.
I think it's trash what they're doing, like what they're doing to the game. It's like we have this like
What
this
Tencent is
beautiful
doing, to be
yeah,
clear.
we have like this
Yeah.
beautiful pure form of the game, and then Tencent's just fucking turning it into a circus, which
I
is
don't
good
mind
for
the Chinese
it's
client too
good for their
much, but
crowd.
I'm happy that Chris made very clear that a lot of those features are never going to be on the Western
I'm really
client.
glad, yeah.
They're sticking to what they know works, and like, yeah,
If
they're
I
not
wanted to pay to
going.
win, I would just go play real life, right?
Yeah, true that. True that. But yeah, what I wanted to say, like with the races going on, I interrupted myself like 5 times and went on a tangent, and we completely went away from what I wanted to say. But I started playing in a private league, and dude, I got smacked so hard by things. Like playing in all mods is really tough.
Yeah, it seems really scuffed for sure. It's especially like getting to the point where your build is set up. That's the huge challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, in the beginning it's so much harder than the normal game, and then you slowly approach the point where it doesn't really feel all that different anymore.
Yeah,
But in the beginning, it's insane.
it's insane. Yeah, even just like Mervale, it's like she'll kick your ass, man. Or like
Yeah,
yeah,
that's what I want to
even
say. Like
Brutus even.
Merville and Weaver are the hardest boss, and Weaver not necessarily, because Weaver you can just cheese with enough damage, and he
Right.
won't necessarily be able to shoot his spider projectile, or she. But Merville, dude, I had my first Merville that I did in that league. She, first of all, it's like an LMP league, so she shoots additional projectiles, and when she shoots this little ball thing,
Creates
that's
AoE
so
on the
scary.
ground.
Yeah, the secondary AoE overlap, I think.
Yeah,
Like you can get
exactly.
hit by more than one, and you can get technically one shot by that.
Shotguns you.
And it's completely random, and it doesn't have a cooldown. So she did that literally 5 times in a row once. It's like
Yeah.
ball, 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 and I'm like Wonka S. But yeah, it's yeah. I want to get better at racing, in particular the all mods for Zizrin's Gauntlet event. That would be cool.
I
I've
think
seen a
it's
lot of
cool.
people
Like,
practice for that.
really big shout out to to Ziz and to Vyro, because I think Vyro, he's been putting in a lot of work. So shout out to him, man.
Oh yeah,
He's behind the
absolutely.
scenes. He's been really pushing it. I think he's been really pushing the racing scene and stuff. And I feel like he deserves more love than he gets. So for sure, shout out to Vyro. Shout out to Ziz for keeping the community alive with that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
But also,
especially in the face of like GGG not really
definitely not doing the
organizing
things
events, that they're
themselves,
still
right?
pushing for it, and that after such a long time of us not getting official events, they're still pushing for it and doing the community stuff.
Yeah, and also GGG like provide more tools for actually creating challenging and fun events rather than just giving us like this all mod thing doesn't appeal to me, for example. I understand why like Ziz would choose to, or Viro would choose to make a league like that, because it's essentially the only way that they can seek out like a challenge, right? But why doesn't GGG allow for like more complicated leagues, right? Like actual challenges.
See, that's what I mean. Like, wait, you said you understand that they don't want to devote development time to that, and even though I disagree with the development
That's
time,
true,
because
yeah.
they've in the past they've said that it's easy as flicking a switch for them to set up a league, right? So what they mean with it takes development time is that someone from the team would have to spend a day or two setting up rewards and setting up like a reward structure, promoting the race and doing the social media stuff, and maybe getting a sponsor and that sort of stuff. So again, I understand it, but like with all this community enthusiasm going on and people really organizing the race, I would massively appreciate it if at least we got better tools for making our own stuff.
Definitely.
And
because like if you ask me, like just amping up the mods and everything, that doesn't really interest me, like as a player. But like if you're
why though?
gonna
Because
say, like,
you said that you don't really have a challenge to go up against with the big power that you gain from harvest crafting, for example, all the power creep. So just making the game harder wouldn't make it harder for you, or like wouldn't
it's
be
not
a
that it
challenge
doesn't make
that
it
you'd like?
harder. Like I do understand that it's like harder, but
Okay.
I've never been like a hardcore player myself in any game that I've ever played. So the prospect of just like dying to something that's like, as you said, just Muriel just throwing balls at you with no cooldown and not knowing, that doesn't really interest me. But when you're saying like this is the only thing that I've ever really been able to think about, but it couldn't be applied to like other things. Like imagine like you just don't have access to the end game mapping, and all you can do is delve. You have infinite soul fight, you delve, everything comes from there. You have access to your hideout and delve, and that's it. That's a challenge league that I would be interested in playing in. And sure, it's because I like delve, but I'm pretty sure like it can be applied to other aspects of the game, right?
No, absolutely. Like it's like something that has been brought up on this podcast many times, that many people have brought up as an idea, brought forward as an idea, that Balor always said, that I always say that would be cool. And then eventually, with everyone saying the word endless delve, or the term endless delve, because it's two words, eventually GGG even said it themselves on an interview, like where they on a Q&A, that they have the technology to set up stuff like that, right? That they could be doing an endless delve in the future. And they didn't have to say it. They didn't have to say the word endless delve at all. They didn't have to acknowledge that it exists, that it could be a theoretical possibility. Right? But they did choose to tease it. And it's like almost a year ago now, if not long. No, it must have been like Legion Blight. I don't know. But that sort of stuff, then dropping the ball on that again and not following it up with with an actual event. I do understand that the current pandemic situation and everything is putting a lot of pressure on their development team to get back on track, especially because they delayed the league by 1 week and now they want to catch back up, but they're not going to be able to catch back up for the next league now because it's so massive and they want to have the additional week. But they want to catch up back for Christmas because they want to get the Christmas league out a solid week before Christmas, so that there's still a lot of people in the office around, so to react to bugs and react to problems or things that need attention. And yeah, I do understand that, but on the other hand, it's also like the current time with everyone being isolated at home and everyone being locked into either watching streams or playing games or like watching entertainment. It's also, I think, like a chance to explode as an entertainment.
On that, definitely.
It's so important, this racing aspect. I think they really either understate how much they know how important it is, or they don't really appreciate how important it is. Maybe I overestimate and overstate it. Maybe I'm just
I don't think
know.
you do. There's almost more people watching PoE right now than there is on League Start. Maybe not quite as much, but you know what I mean, right? Like the viewership is booming right now.
It definitely has a very, very large drive to the section. Yeah, it's and
there's so many small things they could do, because if you think also about like how leagues are created, then they could make more leagues with this in mind of like this could be a good challenge for the future. Like I could even see like, for example, synthesis. You like where you have only synthesis, no more endgame mapping. And so you go do the Nexus and you drop memories in the Nexus, and then you
Endless
put those like
synthesis.
memory fragments into your map device and you run those to get like more pieces for the Nexus, and that could be a fun event for like 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, or even like
Like
for the
for
end of
example.
league of this league, they could have done. I suggested that on another YouTube video in the comment section. People asked what would be your favorite leagues to combine, and I was like, dude, do endless delve plus harvest. So like you go into Lionized Watch, you
That
can't
would be
leave,
insane.
you directly go into the mine, and then in the mines you find lab trials and you find seed caches on every node, and you can go into your garden and plant the seeds, and you craft your gear, you delve, you craft your gear, you delve, you craft your gear, you delve, with the mapping and the act progression aspect completely out of it. You just level, craft, progress, craft. I love that. Like without, I'm not forever, but like for a 2 month or
Yeah.
2 month 2 league event, 2 week event. Wow, I can't speak.
I
Do
definitely
you have
agree.
any ideas for a fun combination like that? You already said synthesis. Do you combine synthesis with anything? It's too easy to say beyond there. Synthesis beyond.
Synthesis Beyond would be pretty cool. That's true. I would never like for if you say that, like I would never combine Delve and Beyond. That's one thing that's like
Delvin beyond is Monka, yeah.
holy. That's like you can never like when we see Beyond on our Delve map, we're like, yeah, I'm not going there. Like no way, dude. But I think yeah, as you said, I think Harvest would be really cool. But I would go Synthesis and Delve, obviously, because I just love delving, and I think Synthesis is my second favorite league. And if you could just run like memories and use a synthesizer and
Okay, so you get
all that
memory
kind of stuff.
fragments. You get memory fragments from the delve nodes, and you get sulfide from the memory fragments. And you go
Right.
back
Or
and
even just
forth.
like imagine if memory fragments, like you know what you used to run in the map, right? Like with Kavas, you click them
Yeah.
and you go inside this thing, and it's like a timed sort of based thing.
So you'd have that
Imagine
in
if,
your delve nodes.
or just imagine if that was turned into like a map that you put into your map device, and when you go in, then the memory thing starts, and you have to run, and then you have to, if you fail it, you fail it. If you don't,
Also,
then you
memories
get
as a map,
the
basically. Itemized
right,
memories, kind of.
and
Okay.
then you put that in your Nexus, and yeah, and that could be the game. Because like there's so many cool things that they could do with old mechanics that they just decided to scrap as well. I'm just really sad about the state of synthesis currently. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, I imagine like you're not the only content creator who strongly feels that synthesis, at least in its end state, was a pretty fun mechanic with the memory nexus mapping, and that it did not deserve to be shut
Definitely.
down so hard on implementation that we only get these boss maps and the items, but no actual synthesizing. Like I mean, actually, do you miss the synthesizing bases? Would you like that back
Yeah.
as
Yeah, I
well?
really enjoyed it because I really liked, because that was something that's like that's one thing that I really like about these sort of like RPGs as well, where as I said earlier, like trade can be one of the best or worst things about the game, but in this case it's like the best, right? You set up your live search for that specific item, and you're like, holy shit, this double T1 like item popped up that I can use as a base to then fracture, finally popped up, so I'm gonna buy it, and then I'm gonna fracture fossil it until I get a good combo, and I'm gonna whack him in the synth until I get what I need. I always like that sort of aspect too, because that gives you longevity, like to a league for me, where it's like a goal where I have to work for ages, and it's so niche in most scenarios. So I actually get the thing that I want, where sort of Harvest has just been handing you all the best crafts so easily. Like getting a quick craft is not hard. I feel like the only hard craft to get is a speed craft, but then again, all you have to do is buy the speed seeds and then put some
Yeah,
flowers next to
yeah,
it,
and
and then it's
Trade
done.
League, dude. That topic came up a lot on my stream. Did you look at
Yeah,
the actual seed statistics? Like how little crit augment and removes there were, and how few speed augments and removes versus the other
yeah.
ones?
I
It's
get a lot of
insane.
crits, but I get no speed whatsoever, right? Like I managed to get quite a lot of crits overall,
Okay.
but never speeds. Like not a lot, like compared to everything else, right? Like you have like 90% trash, 10% crit or whatever, right? But still, it's like that 10% if you run a lot ends up being quite a bit. But in comparison to speed, like I have like maybe 2 speed crafts in my entire stash. And I've been like saving them the whole league basically.
Yeah,
I don't really map as much as other people though, so
I occasionally get speed, but then never augment or remove. Like yesterday while leveling, I got reforge an item with a speed modifier, like
right.
leveling in that all mods super dangerous league, and I actually took a boot base and got like double resist life and 20% movement speed in Act 3, and I was like, or was it in Act 4?
That's pretty good.
I think. And I was like, Pog, yeah, wow, that's amazing.
But see, like
So,
the thing with those seeds is like, then you have to put the buds next to them. Like if you do think to yourself like, I planted 5 of these seeds in this bed, then you have to put the fortune bud next to it, and
right, yeah.
the other one that I forget what it's called, like the white and
Blossom.
green one. Yeah, so then when you put them there, and then you're guaranteed that you're at least gonna get some ad removes from the seeds that you planted. But it's too like easy if you buy the seeds essentially. So
Yeah.
but then again, it's like they're really expensive, the seeds, right? Like the crafts themselves are like 2.5x on Trade League for 1 ad remove speed. So
How much? 1 to 2x?
like 2.5x, I think, around.
2.5x.
And the crafts are not guaranteed, definitely, yeah. But you know, you plant a whole bed, you do that 2 or 3 times, and you're gonna get them, like for sure.
I mean, that's how I got my defense augment when I really needed one, and I didn't get one. I had like a really long dry streak. Was waiting to augment some more energy shield onto my regalia for the caustic arrow character, and that took me long until I realized just put the fucking buds there that roll more crafting options and pick the rarest one, and then within like 2 or 3 attempts I had it.
Yeah, I did a lot of that with the. Even though like you might think to yourself it's not worth it, but I was just like, oh, whatever. So I just farmed like lots of beds of the Wetas, and then just got like 30 ad remove lives and like 20 maps or something.
Wow. See, like the thing is, my problem, and I started, I try to fix myself, my own mindset there, but like I end every big league, like every 3-month league, I end an SSF with like excess exalts, excess chaos, excess chisels, scarabs, all kinds of stuff, and I always have this imaginary like goal that I need to get to like super high maps, right, and like farm them comfortably and like fully invest, otherwise it's not worth it. But I end up not using the stuff at all, and it's like it just takes me longer to get there because I don't juice my lower maps already, right? And it's really weird. Like I should be just throwing all the stuff into whatever highest map I'm currently running and not caring about losing it. But yeah, in the same way with the fortune buds and flowers and blossoms in the beginning, I was careful, but now I kind of use them just
use the resources.
Just use it all. Like you might be dead tomorrow, so why save for tomorrow, right?
And plus, like if you think to yourself like you run out of all of them, then it's like, oh well, now I have something to do. Let's go farm more. You know, so you could say to yourself like, let's speed run low tier maps to get the T4 beds, growing, so then I can get more of them. So it's like this feedback loop of grinding, which is pretty healthy, which what I think SSF should be, which is really nice. And I wish I enjoyed SSF, man, but I just love trading so much. I love that market. I love that market aspect of like creating value for other people by doing the content I enjoy. Because I might like drop something that I don't necessarily care about. Like if I'm farming things and I drop a blighted map, I'm like, I don't want to run this. I don't care about a blighted map. But if
someone's willing to pay for it.
But me farming for people that do want to makes me valuable, right? And makes me have sort of like a purpose to some extent. And it makes me then able to do what I want to do with the currency that I've amassed from selling to these people that like to do that sort of content.
But do you never feel like pressured into a specific playstyle because of Trade League? Simply because you have to take all these economic factors into consideration, and there's like no actual like big freedom, but there's like you're forced into a certain direction because of the economic advantages that direction provides.
I mean, the thing is, I guess I'm lucky because I love delving, and
Delving is profitable because no one
it's
loves it,
just
or
so profitable, right?
is it?
It's not because nobody loves it. It's just because uh, it's such a grind and such a time investment that most
Or to
people
get to the
will,
point where you get the really juicy rewards.
where you're just getting the super juice. Yeah, that people just don't put that time in. And I've had arguments with people on Reddit or whatever, right? It's always the case, whatever. I'm not trying to shit on Reddit or anything, but where it's like they're
No,
like
we don't shit on Reddit here.
they're like you're the 0.001%. Nobody like us will ever be able to get to 6K. And I thought to myself, like, look, if you do like 20 depths a day, you can do that in a league, right? Like just farm like 40, 50 depths a day. You'll be able to do that. Just delve. Your mentality is blocking you from doing the thing because you think to yourself that you can't do it. Just do it and you'll get there eventually. You don't have to be there like week 1 or 2. You can be there, month 2.5, and it's still good.
So has
You
it
think to
become
yourself,
more
but then it's
profitable,
not
this
worth it.
league? Because of everyone doing the fractured fossil thing on maps?
Nah, it's actually less profitable in general because um
Because it's easier to craft the gear to get all the way down there?
I mean, it's gonna seem like a bit of a jab or a stab at the league, but generally on bad leagues or less well received leagues, more people delve.
Oh,
So
right. Because people don't have any actual endgame challenge from the
right,
league itself, so they seek out their own challenge. But that's a good thing.
exactly.
Instead of
Yeah.
like stopping to play, that's a healthy thing that people.
So there's very high inflation of fossils, but the only fossil that's worth it is fractured fossil as well. So every other fossil, like faceted and things, nobody cares. Like bloodstained fossils, since GG killed and deleted Val builds, nobody cares about those either. Hollow fossils this league, which you'd think to yourself are really good, right? Nobody cares about those either, which is crazy to me because how much are hollow fossils at the moment? Because you could craft a hollow socket on everything, and there isn't even that crazy supply. Um, and like you can make such crazy items with the harvest. They're like 35C, man,
Wow.
for a hollow socket on your craft, and you can make like I don't know, maybe to some extent like hollow fossils have been completely devalued by like influences, right? Because there used to be not that many useful suffixes on gear aside for like resistance, or that's basically it, right? If you think about it, before influences or an underground mod which was deleted. But now with the influences, there's really strong suffixes, so maybe that's what's devalued hollow sockets a lot. But yeah, aside for fracture fossils, like if it wasn't for that, then there wouldn't be much to delve for this league, especially since resonators are worth nothing. Like absolutely nothing. Because nobody's crafting with fossils either.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna ask on that note. Do you think like the addition of the new influences does does make fossils, like, how do you feel about the implementation? I guess I want to ask about the implementation of GGG moving all the fossil specific mods away from fossils and onto the influences. I think we touched upon it last time because
Yeah,
that was
I think
2
we
weeks
did.
ago. But
I don't know.
now that it's settled and now we have harvest, like there's probably a lot of new insights that you gained on the topic. And like, how do you feel about it now? Do you feel like fossils should have exclusive mods that you can only get when you use fossils, or you think it was a step into the right direction now in retrospective?
I think it's fine. Like I think it's okay. Like to some extent, I sort of wish there was still some more like diversity in being able to use like because it really locks you into, if I'm crafting boots, I have to make Redeemer what is it, Redeemer Hunter base, right? Or if you're hunting a helmet, you have to have Warlord because power charge and crit multi and elemental damage, like or if you're Chaos build, you also have to have Hunter. But at the other side, I think I'm completely okay with it. I just feel like they should just give some love to maybe like Tangled fossils, for example. Which is like a rare fossil that can roll any fossil modifier. But since they've removed,
Wait, tangled fossil?
yeah, like
I don't even
I'm not
remember.
surprised you don't even know about it. It's
Yeah,
it's
that is so weird. Any fossil
so
modifier,
useless,
okay.
right? So
Yeah,
imagine
that's
if this could
super
still roll
RNG.
old ES Underground, for example, or if it could roll like not -9% or some shit like that. Like that would be really interesting, right?
It would be super RNG.
Super RNG, but that aspect of RNG adds sort of like, I would spam 300 of them on an item if I could get this insane underground, right?
Yeah, because you're you're just dropping them left and right.
Yeah, that too, I
Probably.
suppose. But then it would add value to that fossil itself as well, and this sort of element of RNG that could potentially create really interesting items. But at the same time, I think it's fine. Like that it's all like on influences now, because fossils is still insane, and I think they're undervalued still. Like being able to block things is the most powerful thing in crafting. Like being able to say like, I don't want life, I don't want TS, and I want to like target this or something like that, right? Because if you
Yeah.
if you do does not want life, doesn't want ES, then most of the prefixes are blocked on body armors, for example. So then you have like such a higher chance that if you then add a jagged fossil, you're gonna get like explode or something like that. Which, by the way, with harvest you can get that in like 2 clicks.
Yeah. Harvest is guaranteed
But
explode because there's not that many
right,
fizz prefixes, right?
exactly. But just in the grand scheme of things, I'm just making an example of how powerful fossils can be.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, obviously, assuming that harvest doesn't go core, at least not all of it.
Even if it does go core, there's some things that you can make that are absolutely insane that people are not thinking about, which I think a lot of people are sort of like, oh, look at my triple res T1 life, T1% life Stygian Vice. You're like, that's cool. But have you tried to craft like with faceted fossils on a chest to make like plus gem levels, frenzy explode, like, things like that, where it's like, now that's a cool item, where you have to combine fossils that give rare modifiers that are only available on them with the power of harvest crafting to create things that would never have been able to be made before. Now that's cool, man. Like I have a chest that's like +1 support from Redeemer, +1 strength from Faceted Fossil, then it's got Frenzy, Explode, T1 Life, and a Res. It's like, this would have cost like, actually would have been statistically impossible to make before this league. And that's the sort of stuff that I'm like really like, that's cool about harvest crafting, but arguably way too powerful, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, but like, yeah. No, I don't want to sound like negative because I always say we don't want it to go core. Like, it is a little bit too strong in some aspects, but I definitely going from this to just back to like spamming almost pure RNG crafts would be very harsh, and it's probably going to go that way that we'll get some shape or form of deterministic crafting in the future.
Definitely. I think Chris
Probably
Wilson
not
basically
through
said,
harvest.
right, that it was a test.
Yeah, I
They
mean,
were just
every
like,
league is sort of a test where they're throwing us a bone and see what we do with it. Sort of, I don't know whether we eat it or we dig it up or
and then you get the
bury
crazy
it.
crafters like Mobius and thing come up with combinations of like, what if,
Yeah,
or like
exactly.
iron, where it's like, what if I combine this prefixes cannot be changed and I put this craft on it with multi-mod, and then you put this and you put that craft on it, you slam it, and then you add remove influence, and then you suffix the prefix, and you're just like, what are you talking about, dude? And then they
Yeah,
end up with this item that you're like, you look at it and you're just like, what is this? Like, how did you do this?
yeah,
And
but it's
that,
awesome that there's this other dimension that people can specialize into, where they can become super good at the game, and like yet another aspect that doesn't really
definitely.
compare to anything else that other people have been doing before.
I really
There's
like
so
that
many
as well,
different disciplines in Path of Exile, and no
for
one is
sure.
perfect at all of them. It's very hard to be a master of the entire game.
Shout out to the crafters for putting in the groundwork, for sure. Oh my god, doing the hard work in that aspect. I'll just keep killing monsters.
Yeah, killing monsters is definitely a big thing. But yeah, so in what shape or form would you like? Do you have any ideas how it could come back? Like Balor has said, like shove them into bestiary because Einar has mostly useless stuff that should be removed from the game. What do you say about that? Add the some of the mods to Einar.
I really don't know. I think it's I really don't know.
Yeah, I think it might actually
Maybe
go
you
away
shouldn't be able
next league.
to. Maybe you should just not be able to add remove.
Because
Potentially.
yeah, true. Because that's something that people throughout the ages, like even since I started playing Path of Exile, basically a lot of people have asked for something like a divine orb that would go beyond the tiers, so you could re-roll the tiers of a certain mod, and being able to basically brute force tier 1 life and to brute force tier 1 resists and all that stuff onto items is really insane.
It doesn't even take that much if you think about it. There's like,
well, it can take a lot, but
there are 13 tiers of life, right? So that's like 1 in 13 technically the odds of getting tier 1 life if you block the suffixes.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
it's
I get
not that bad.
It depends on the item. If you're talking about a ring or something like that, on armor pieces, you'd still have the hybrid, right?
Yeah.
You get the hybrid with the life and defense. So that's a lot of mods.
But you could block that, right? Because that's the thing. You could also
true. Obviously,
you could craft hybrid and then make sure that you've blocked all the suffixes. So the only thing that can happen is essentially just re-rolling life.
Yeah, and then you remove add life, then you can also remove the hybrid, no? Or you can only have one hybrid. One
you
of
would
the two.
You would then just like add life, and then take the craft off, and then remove life.
Okay,
and then put the craft back on, add life. Or in those situations, you would do that sort of stuff, right? Like, which is sort of how you get like -9 penetration on a helmet, where it would have more than one roll, which most of the time they don't, right? If you want like a fire mod, all you have to do is craft fire res, slam fire, you're guaranteed -9 to fire. But if you're doing like a redeemer base, you can hit like I think 2 other mods. One of them is like Fizz Taken As. I forget what the other one is, but then you can just like block one of those and just do this strategy: add, remove, like add, and then annul, and add, and annul.
Yeah, I clearly haven't engaged a lot in depth with the crafting. I made some mistakes and I learned some things, but I'm like totally not on the level of the super high IQ trade league boys that spam those crafts like 20, 30 times a day. I get like a session every couple of hours where I add or remove a couple of crafts. I did make my fair share of mistakes where I'm like, oh shit, I should have blocked this or should have blocked that. So yeah, it's trial and error. Because my chat is also an asshole and they don't tell me things, they wait for me to make the mistakes.
And they just pepe laugh. Yep.
Yeah.
That happens. I'm pretty blessed to have some very smart people in chat.
It helps at times. It's just not all the time, right?
Yeah.
Another thing that I want to go into, because we talked about harvest a lot, but one thing that continuously popped up in my head during the last couple of episodes when I was trying to do the outlines, never actually made it into the outline or onto an episode, and I'm also not sure whether like I can remember all the points that I had in my head for this, but maybe you can name something off the top of your head where like that I don't really like that. Is there like any major frustration points? And I want to really be clear about this. Obviously, we both love Path of Exile, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't play as much. We wouldn't spend time making a podcast right now and talking about the game. So all this comes from a place of love, even if we at times maybe sound harsh in the criticism. But like, what are the big frustrations with Path of Exile for you at the moment? What like little things that you would like to fall away or that you're missing, quality of life, or like design stuff, whether it's like actually just annoying or whether it's designed to be annoying.
Want proper ladders, proper rankings, and also potentially like more challenge content. Is that a doggy? Or is that a cat?
No, it was a water bottle out of the 6-pack.
Oh, okay.
Like it squeaks when I try to get it off like plastic on plastic.
Yeah, for me, like definitely like ladder ranking systems and just like potentially adding more challenge content where people, because the main issue I think with Path of Exile developers is they're scared about balancing rewards. But I think a lot of the players that might want to engage into these sort of like, you know, PvE VP, so player versus environment versus player. So essentially, you're battling other players, but without directly battling them. You know, on the ladder rankings and things like that. You could draw a parallel between like Greater Rift Lords and Diablo 3 or whatever, where like there's like the rankings and stuff, people are competing and stuff like that. Um, but it could be for anything in the game, like Uber Elder kills, like how many whatever's like you've done, right? So like it would incentivize people to be like, oh yeah, I have like 600 KC here, and you're getting on the rankings. But also like just adding more like sort of, imagine if like you had this system where you have a map and it doesn't necessarily drop more items or anything like that. There's not more quant, not more pack size or anything like that. The item level stays the same of the items, where it's like if you complete this map, it upgrades to tier 17. And if you complete the tier 17, it upgrades to tier 18. And you can keep going until you get to a point where your player doesn't take it anymore. And then if you fail, then the map downgrades or something like that. Do you know what I mean, right?
It
Where it's like,
disappears.
or maybe it just downgrades like by five difficulties. So you then have to grind through those 5 difficulties again to complete the map.
But then you would have
It's
infinite
basically
infinite
just,
sustain for free, no?
I suppose, but you already get infinite sustain if you're doing like high tier mapping. Because like
Yeah,
every
but
map, I'm getting
you
like
have to
5
get there,
maps.
right? You have to like invest into, or we
Sure,
have
but
to
I'm
do the
talking about
objectives
like
and stuff.
an end game system where it's like once you get to the point that you're able to complete like tier 18s, I don't think you'd worry too much about like
Okay, yeah.
sustain, right?
So you want basically another infinitely scaling endgame system.
Where it's not necessarily like, actually maybe you could even say like map drops are disabled in this map. It wouldn't really matter
Yeah,
because I think people are,
because obviously if the map goes on forever and if you lose it, then you just downgrade 5. Then you don't need map drops. Map drops would be overkill.
right. And then if you do want to go for the generic mapping system, then you can, right? But essentially, like imagine like, yeah, you put in a tier 16 and it's like the special tier 16, and if you do it, it upgrades by 1. If you fail it, it downgrades by 5. And then you have a ladder ranking for this player did it with this. And that would be really interesting to like to see how people would create builds to tackle that sort of content, but also like challenge themselves and go against other players to make cool builds to do that sort of stuff. And I think like just that's what PoE is missing. And I think the developers are just too scared about balancing the rewards and thinking that's all we want is just the rewards, like carrot and stick approach to gaming, which to some extent RPGs especially are about that. But once you've achieved all your goals, what's left? Like it gets to a point where like currency is boring. Delve is not that. Reaching 6K Delve, if you talk about it to a person like me, like 6K Delve is like 3 weeks of a league.
Hmm.
And then after 6K, it's done. Like it actually becomes a lot easier post 6K. So Delve is like the scaling in Delve is really not made for the meta is broken it essentially. Like we figured it out, and the ranking for it is like not even that good either. But yeah, that's the only aspect in the game that's currently like that, and that's why I like to engage with it, because it feels like that's the only real race aside from going to 100.
Okay, so wait, basically you're saying your biggest frustration with Path of Exile at the moment, or one of the biggest gripes with it, would be that the lack of something rather than the presence of something.
Right, the lack of challenge content, like PvEVP essentially. Like we don't need PvP, but I want to be able to like compete against other players on a ladder
Mm.
by doing challenging content, which does not necessarily reward me for doing that challenging content. It's just what the rewarding part is being the best or working towards becoming the best. Which some people might think then it's like, what's the point? But the point is to have fun.
Yeah.
You know? I feel like a lot of PoE players they only look towards making currency, and that's because they struggle to make currency. But once you figured how like to make currency, then what's next? It's very short-lived, that feedback loop of like essentially like dopamine, I suppose.
Hmm.
That's why we play games, right? For that dopamine rush.
Okay, but wait. Let me tell you about my gripe that recently came up. I have a bunch of other ones, but like one thing that pops into my mind now after I brought up the topic, maybe that stirs you into a little bit different direction and makes you think, oh, I got something like that as well. So one of the
Sure.
big things that frustrates me right now is that coming from a hardcore solo cell phone perspective, right? I play hardcore. It's not really an SSF kind of thing, but it's a hardcore thing where you go into a boss and you die, and your character leaves the entire league. Where in softcore, you would be able to go back through the portal and to fight the boss until you run out of portals and you practice the fight. In hardcore, not only do you lose your character if you die, but you also lose the ability to continue to practice the boss. And I would love it if you could actually, on death, like migrate that entire encounter with the character into, even if if they can't do it because that would duplicate it, right? If they would migrate the encounter, it also has to remain there because you might want to still finish it in hardcore with another existing character, right? But if they could just move the character into a void league where like everything that you had in the league was mirrored, so you could continue sort of in there to just practice, or if it's only just for a limited amount of time, like 10 minutes maybe, until it times out, until you decide it. But for me, it felt really, really punishing for no good reason. That in my Awakener attempt, I died, and then I had to play an entire day on the same character in permanent in order to get back to the Awakener fight, because my Atlas was not unlocked at all, because they reset the Atlas progression. Okay, so I need to run a high tier map, get all the completion, and then I run all the Conquerors, get all the Watchstones, and then get to Cirrus, and then so like I did one day of grindings because I wanted to practice the fight, and then the first Cirrus that you get is easy to get, right? Because it's in the natural progression when you still get the Conquerors pretty much guaranteed. Whenever you run an area, a zone with the right number of Watchstones, they spawn, and then you only have to run 3 maps in order to spawn the actual Conqueror and to be able to fight it and to get the Watchstone. But after you killed your first Cirrus, it becomes a lot more random, and that also frustrated me to no end, because it's like such a long grind to get there, where the fight is really punishing. I don't have an actual problem. A lot of people are talking about the Cirrus fight like they don't like it mechanically. And I'm not saying it's the best fight ever designed, but I kind of like it being punishing. The worst thing that I think about the fight is the fact that re-entering is really hard after dying or logging out. You could run into a die beam and just instantly die and being shut down from re-entering the fight. So there should be some sort of grace phase or some way to get safely back into vision range of Cirrus.
Definitely.
But yeah, it's just I just feel like so much of the difficulty of the fight is just the fight being gated behind this long grind, so you don't actually get to practice it. I feel like that's a big problem for me, is that the fight is not actually hard, but what's hard is like limited visibility because of visual clutter and limited accessibility. But if I was able to practice the fight, I would overcome these difficulties, right? But it's just so hard.
It's like really, really. I understand that completely, and I do see how, like, the thing about the Cirrus fight is it's difficult, but not in the right ways. I feel as well. Like it's like he says die, and then if you flame dash, you win. If you don't, you lose. But flame dashing is not difficult.
Imagine flame dashing. Wait, oh no,
right,
flame dashing is better than.
like,
is flame dash better on Cirrus than dash?
I guess so, because he also makes those puddles on the floor, right? Where like if you're dashing through them, you actually take degen, and then he takes your regen away, right?
All right.
It's because like there's a lot of things that you kind of want to like completely jump
And
over.
flame dash is kind of a instant travel, rather than like
Yeah,
moving
instead
through
of
something.
being like your body actually traveling through stuff. But
Mm.
essentially, I don't think it's hard because it's hard. I think it's hard because it's kind of like if you let your guard down for a split second, then you don't see this little shining thing on the floor, you're dead. Or like if you like let him out of your sight, you're dead. And it's not like punish. It's really punishing, but it doesn't punish you because of like it's I don't know, man. Because this is game development philosophy, and obviously not being a developer, I don't know how to make it better. But the example is always drawn between like Uber Elder and like All, for example. All the Crystal King is a fantastic boss.
Mm.
Same with Kurgle. Like I don't like him. I think it sucks playing him, but I acknowledge that it's a really good fight because
The mechanical
when
challenge, you say.
yeah, because when you die, you're like, oh yeah, I messed up because you put these crystals on the floor like 3 seconds before, and then I didn't move away from the crystals, and the crystals exploded, and so I died. Like, whereas Sirius, there's no like sort of telegraphs, right? Like for example, like in Kurgle, I can tell what he's gonna do next just by looking at how he waves his hands, and that in itself is a telegraph, right? Because I know like, oh,
Yeah, you see the
waving his
beginning of the animation.
he's waving his hands up, and then give me like a second and a half. I know exactly what he's doing, right? I know he's gonna do the backflip. I need to move away from the center, so you can practice and get good at it. But with Sirius, it's just like instant attack after attack. And if it's a die beam, he just says die, and it's already when he says die, it's already happened. You just need to be constantly like either close to him or running around in circles, and it just doesn't feel like um, an actual good boss fight because there's no like telegraph and there's not many ways to like outplay
Well,
the
there's the
boss
voice cues.
aside
Like
for
the thing is, like when I died, I was like really obsessed with like learning to like the tells, because I really want
yeah
to be good at the fight in hardcore, and that's why I also put in the grind. And I did like one entire day of like Atlas progression to do 2 serious fights. But in the end, like 2 serious fights are still not enough. Like I took out all my support gems, and I didn't care about whether I take him down or not. I just tried to survive as long as possible and try to tell. Like every time he does the split, where he does the circle of clones, right? I try to like point out, okay, that's him, that's the one, and then he gives it away when the voice cue comes, right? You can hear it when you, especially use headphones. It works decently well, and there's also
like you
some
have to
minor
play with sound
details.
on
Like I think
Sirius.
he has like red glowy hands, the one that is the right one, and he also has like before he does the beam, he blinks red like really quickly to confirm that that's the
Yeah,
one who's gonna do the beam. Like I've
yeah,
seen that. There's a lot
like
of
you can
like
see his
little
trail.
tells, but yeah, it's like just I don't understand. Like the fight is so challenging. I don't understand why they have to make it artificially more challenging by making it so hard to access. It's just yeah, that's I find sad. It reminds me of the old special race types, right? Like you remember Endless Ledge and Descent and Descent Champions,
I
which I
wasn't
never
playing
got
back
good
then.
at because it was so rare that these events happened, and the people who had played them already back in the day when they were a thing obviously were much better because they knew what
Yeah,
in which chest comes up, which boss they need which values against, and it's so hard to learn them for someone like me who came to the party late because they only happen when GGG decides that they happen. Where yeah, it would be cool if you could just make them happen more often. I don't know.
That's a
But
good
going back
question.
into the earlier topic, like it would be great to have these special things for the paid leagues.
Yeah, Origin asks if Uber Elder is like harder to spawn in Sirius. It definitely is, isn't it? Because that's completely gated behind whether you're gonna get a Zana mission. I mean, a Zana mission or
Oh,
a
you mean
map in
Uber Elder
Zana.
now? I thought you meant he
Right.
meant to compare. He compared it to. I thought what Orangina says is that compared to what Uber Elder was previously, when Uber Elder was in Sirius's place as the actual factual endgame of the boss of the game. And I did in Betrayal, I did a bunch of Uber Elders and grinded towards it. I felt similar about it. I didn't feel as strongly about it as I do now. Maybe it's just because I don't do it very efficiently yet. Maybe I could do it more
Right.
efficiently. Maybe I could play a better, faster build that pumps out more maps per minute and stuff like that. Maybe, but I honestly find this one a lot more frustrating than Uber Elder.
I agree with
To
that
spawn
as
and to get to
well.
the fight.
But I think he was trying to ask more like now. Like, how many Uber Elders have you done, for example, in SSF?
Oh, none, absolutely none.
Right. Have you gotten the fragments for it?
I had like one fragment or two last league, I think. But the thing is, I
Which
also
that's
always
kind of
die
insane.
before I get into end. Like, I'm pretty sure it's easy to get them, but I'm not sure whether I would actually get to the point with a build that I would actually want to go into the fight. It's also been so long that I fought Elder. Like, now that's a problem that it's been so long. I used to be kind of okay at the fight, but
yeah,
I'm afraid.
At least that's something you can practice if you jump on standard or something, because you just buy the fragments, right?
Yeah, true. See, that's
As
the thing.
opposed
You can
to
buy the
Steerix.
fragments, but with the Cirrus, it's just really hard to buy the progression. I guess you can buy the fight from someone else.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, I got a Cirrus here. Do you want to do it?
The problem with Uber Elder now is it's very accessible to us trade league boys, but I can't imagine, or I sort of can imagine, but you know, like if you're trying to actually get them on HCSSF, it's completely gated behind the Zana shop missions or a random drop from a boss, right? So I think it's probably like much more difficult to spawn Uber Elder than it is to spawn Cirrus now, which kind of like nerfs SSF players even more, I suppose.
Yeah, I suppose. Can't leave. Ah, okay. I just noticed I couldn't leave my screen with my mouse cursor. That was odd. That completely got me. Huh.
Outplayed.
Yeah, no, the screens don't have the same height, so they're not aligned. So, like, in the bottom corner of the screen, it can't go into the other screen. So there's a corner where there's no transition. It's odd. But yeah, wait, in the beginning you said that you thought about playing Badgers League, but Badgers League already started. Do you have, like, any actual, like, private leagues in mind that you would want to try or engage with the racing stuff, or are you just gonna stick with your progression for the rest of it?
I think I mean, we have like 5 weeks left, right?
Yeah, we're just
I'm gonna stick
halfway
to the
through the league,
progression.
kind of.
I think. I mean, we've had 7 weeks, so we have 5 weeks left.
Yeah,
I
a
think
little bit more than half.
there's a lot of cool theory crafting that can be done this league. That because we've been sort of like spoon fed all this amazing stuff, but we now have to come to the wind down where we have to think next league we're not gonna have this. So what are we gonna do next league? So I think the next point is to start preparing for the next league. But also, I just I'm sort of liking this feedback loop of farming my own fossils to farm my own maps. I'm trying to find more difficult content within the league, but I also like, as I mentioned earlier, I just really like long format grinds, and I hate the fact that it's cut short by. I'll be honest with you, like I really like Flashback, but I also didn't like how it took me away from all the progress that I've made throughout an entire league.
Really? You don't like a friend?
Yeah,
Oh yeah, I mean, I guess it goes hand in hand with
like
you liking
I
the
do,
long period
I do like
grind.
Flashback. I think it's really fun
You
to
like
get all
fresh
those
starts.
that
That's what I wanted
bursts,
to
right?
ask.
I love fresh starts when it's actually fresh, But if it's the same of what we've already had, then for me it's like, well, why don't I play what we already have that I've worked hard in for the past 2 months or something, right? It's just I don't see much reason to sort of take everything I've worked up to this point and just throw it away for another restart. It's just I don't know. It's also why I really liked MMOs. I just loved working on a character and seeing him through how develop through the years or whatever. In the case of PoE, it's developed through the league and just find new interesting things to do, I suppose. But if there's not like an actual real sort of like motivator to play in the league, like I would definitely play Flashback because that's really interesting. You have like all the old leagues put into the league, so that's like really fun, right? But if it's just like amp up the mods, do the same thing you've already done, I don't find that too interesting. I'd rather do like practice for next league. At least it feels like I'm working towards getting better at next league or whatever.
Sounds
But
good.
I'm a very weird type of gamer, I suppose. I just like long format grinds, and that's sort of why I wish there was more depth to a league and longer cycles.
Longer cycles. Yeah, I think a lot of people have said that they would appreciate it, not for longer leagues, but just for the fact that they don't want GGG to feel pressure to release leagues. That they just should be on a longer schedule and just do 3 instead of 4 challenge leagues per year. I'm not so sure whether that would be a great idea, especially if there are leagues like this one where
exactly.
after a few weeks already you feel like you don't have anything like that's particular to that league that you can continue. Obviously PoE is an amazing expansive game, you can always do things, but there should be something that feels like meaningfully different from last league, and it really doesn't that much.
Definitely. See, like if they released this league and it was 5 months long, man, that'd be really, really brutal. Yeah, that would be so brutal, especially on like us streamers, because we want to play the game. This is the games that we've developed our communities on. We're sort of like, to some extent, I wouldn't say we're pressured to play the game, but you sort of have that responsibility to yourself and your community to continue playing and stay excited and stuff. And like, I don't particularly like the feeling where I'm like, I want to play another game because I want to play PoE and I want to stream PoE. But if there's no depth to a league, then inevitably that will happen. And I think what I mean by depth is things should just be hard. And I feel like to some extent GGG should sort of stop reading angry Reddit threads and just make things really hard, because the league is 3 months and people quit in 2 weeks and they complain about things they can't achieve in 2 weeks when they could be playing for 3 months instead, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's the problem. It's like I can't
feel like a lot of
achieve.
people who complain and leave the league because they see that this is a problem, that is a problem, they would have left anyway.
Right.
Like,
Like imagine complaining that
cater.
you can't achieve good gear in like 1 week when the league is 3 months. Like you have 3 months, dude. Like what's the problem? You know?
I
I don't
feel like
know.
a lot of that is though is a problem that there's this mindset. I mean, in the same way that a lot of people feel like pressure from the public, like beauty norm, like where like I don't look like this or that model, I don't look like that
Comparing
people get an
yourself.
idea of how things are supposed to be in our society, and then they compare their own achievements or their own accomplishments and they feel insignificant rather than just enjoying life for what it is, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And the same way, like a lot of people don't find joy in Path of Exile because they feel what they're doing is insignificant compared to what the perceived top 1%, this toxic mindset
It's the reason why people are RMT. But then you think to yourself, oh, you RMT'd, you got all the best shit. Now what? You literally
does that you
killed the
RMT'd it?
game.
You didn't actually achieve it. So how does it
Now
compare?
there's nothing else to do. Like the whole process, it's the process that's the fun part, not the end result, right? It's a grinding game. It's not a end goal game, unless you're trying to, like, I don't know, unless all you're doing is trying to make more currency or something. Like there's no point. It's the journey, not the destination. I think that's what these games are all about. It's the grind. That's the fun part. It's the sort of thing, like, you could sort of like compare it to many other games where it's like, imagine you're like grinding to become like rank 1 or the best, and then you become the best, and it's like, well, now what? Now I retire. And I feel like that's probably how Tie 23 felt. suppose. And that's why it's just like, well, now that's it. You know, I've accomplished my goal, so I guess now let's go to something else. But and that's also like maybe if you compare it to like maxing in old school RuneScape or something like that, where you've gotten all your things down, and then you're just like, well, it's over. You know, and you have to find a new challenge because we like to be challenged as gamers. Like we like to feel like we're working towards something. That's the fun part. Once that's taken away from us, that's it. So at least that's how I look at things. And people just want, as someone mentioned in chat, just instant gratification. And you know, once they achieve that, then they're like, "Oh, the league sucks. It's boring." But they're the ones voicing their opinions and complaining about the league in the first place, saying it's too hard.
Yeah, no, I totally get that though. Like, your build sucks until it basically is OP, and then when it's OP, it's boring.
Yeah.
It's easy to get in that sort of mindset. And I'm happy for me to always have these forced resets in HCSSF, whereas like the game slaps me in the face, like, nope, I'm not playing on this character anymore. It's like, oh rip. Now I'm in front of a new puzzle and I have to make my way into the game again, which can be a blessing, can be a curse, but it definitely keeps the game fresh for a very long time. I mean,
that's what would kind of draw me into hardcore the most, is how it like really prolongs gameplay, and the fact that like if you do make a mistake, you have to start again. But at the same time, it's also the like where the reason why I probably don't want to do it, because I don't know if I could actually stand re-rolling that many times, because I know I would die.
Well, I mean, if you're as good as Steel, then you don't have to re-roll a whole lot of times.
Yeah, sure. But there's also so many limitations to what you can do, which I don't know. Maybe I'm just like such a softcore mentality person where it's like, yeah, but then I can't do like 100% deli maps. I can't push delve. Like Steel is that good because he's that careful as well, right? He's very careful about what he puts himself through. Exactly. He's super safe, man. He'll never put himself in a situation where he knows he's gonna die. Like, if there's more than a 50% chance of him dying, there's no way he's gonna go do it. He always makes his characters insanely strong, right? Yeah, unless actually it's like
he's going for
there's an
boss kill that is the goal or something like
that. The first, right, or something like that. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, no, big Steel fan for the dedication and the
yeah,
careful HCSSF grind. I wish I could be so good. I'm aspiring to be as good one day, maybe.
Yeah, he's crazy good. Also, obviously, like Rise and like Rise is a machine too.
Yeah, Rise is amazing. Like even Ziz has his very, very strong moments in these races. It just always when we talk about this stuff, I feel so connecting back to the beginning of the topic. I feel so insignificant because I need to be better at racing. I need to get in there, but it's just so hard to motivate myself because there's been no official races. I remember when they did the end of league synthesis flashback, I went so hard on that shit. Like, I'm not a good racer, but I did like a top 10 Hierophant because no one was playing Hierophant. And I tried to go for a cultist ladder, and I tried to go for another ladder, I think. Like, it was so fun because there was also demis for every like top 5 or something like that.
Definitely. So like sort of this thing that's like a trophy, right? And you feel proud even though it's worthless. It's just nice having that, for sure.
And since they haven't been doing the events, I just felt like, I don't know, like not enough incentive to level. I feel bad saying that though, because the community around racing is really awesome, and I love the people who arrange the races. Like Camel, I've been a big fan of for a long time, as long as he did it. I mean, still a fan of Camel, but like he said that he doesn't do it anymore. But Brittle has taken over and is doing some races, and then we got the X Method boys, and it's really alive, but it's not enough for me. I need like need an official GGG acknowledgement of racing being a thing, and then I'm also more happy to do the community races. But it's like, I don't know. I feel like I need to be better, and I can't drive myself to practice properly without I don't know. Maybe it's just a pure excuse for me not practicing.
I get that. But again, that goes back to like you don't have like you don't have to give the players much to incentivize them. Like a demi, for example, it's like you don't play standard, but people that were going for demis, they don't care about standard either. Sure, you can sell it in standard for a bunch of currency, but that's not the reason why they did it, right? It's just sort of like it's just nice to have like a reference to your achievements where it's
Yeah,
like, oh,
especially
look,
because it's
I
in the
did
flavor
this.
text. Yeah.
Right. I did this and I got this place, and that's pretty cool.
We always.
It's sort of why like I keep all my characters intact when they go to standard because I'm like, yo, that was Synthesis League, dude. That was good times. I made this chest, like things like that. Where it's like, I don't know, they just hold a nice memory, and that's cool. But currency in the other league, it's worthless. So
Yeah, that's
you
true.
should incentivize players with more than just in-league rewards, and create better ladders and all that sort of stuff. And
Yeah.
also, they should really um, moderate that sort of stuff as well. Because, for example, like the only place where this sort of stuff is present is lab, which is pretty funny, right? Like number one lab gets a jewel.
Oh yeah, okay.
It's like, well, why can't there be in other places? Why is it only lab that has this system? And at the same time, why don't they,
I honestly don't like it in lab.
moderate it?
There was this one guy who got it every time because he just
Yeah,
had
but
the
that's what
best
I mean.
build
Like
and the best
moderated
run.
as well. It's not even the best build and the best run. He's straight up like using unethical tools. Yeah.
Unethical. Oh.
Yeah, like it's not like allowed, right? But GG should look into that as well. Like, but again, that's like developers that they need to employ, right? But what if they just employed like player moderators or something like that?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. With, like getting a little bit more competition going in different aspects of the game, just a little bit more like virtual, like I don't know, virtual competition. Just giving people incentive to excel at more than just delving and levels.
Yeah.
That would be really cool going forward.
There's different things that appeal to different people. Like, I don't enjoy leveling at all. Like, that doesn't incentivize me. Like, sure, one passive point would be really nice for my build. But for me, the grind is very, like, boring. Because it doesn't feel like. I don't know, it just doesn't feel like that's satisfying to me. But for someone else, it's like, that is the game. And I think that's fine to have, like, these different things that motivate different people. But. Yeah. I mean, it'd be nice to sort of have like an actual ladder or challenge where you can actually be like comparing yourself to other people in that regard. Even if it's just like this player has like 7,300 Uber Elder kills this league, and you're like, holy shit. And I don't know, he got like a reskinned tabula or some shit. Who knows?
Yeah, the rewards wouldn't have to be insane for that. Absolutely.
Imagine if it's just like even just a tabula, but like with his name signed on it.
Just a forum title, just a something. Doesn't
Or
even
yeah,
have to be like something that
right.
has an in-game value.
True.
But just like a whatever, like a character border for your character picture.
Yeah.
Something like that. Some sort of alternate art. The color variation of an existing one, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, like boss high scores would be really cool. Exactly. Like he killed it in like.
And
I
in
guess like
regards to PvP, I just want to say, fucking give us the battle royale. I love that shit, and I just like so many people didn't get to experience it when it was out because it was only there for like 40 hours or what. Yeah, need that back. Well. So has it cooled down a little bit for you? Is it you gonna go back into the mines where it's cool?
I wish, man. I wish I could go there. It's so warm here still. Yeah. I mean, right now I'm just gonna keep within my own little in trade league SSF type thing. I'm really enjoying that. It gives me like endless content, and yeah, I'm enjoying the league. I just gotta take it in moderation, so I prepare for the big grind again next league, right? But I'm blessed. I'm really enjoying, playing because I have my stream there, and that's really fun. I really, really like my community.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
appreciate them.
definitely. Having the stream as an additional layer on the game definitely changes the experience and changes the values of different things. Not so much that important anymore to be like successful in the game, but to just have fun with the community, I think. And if you're trying to be successful, you're just not doing it only for yourself, but you're also doing it for the other
Yeah,
guys.
definitely. But the main thing that bothers me is that, you know, I want to have fun with the game, and I need to find fun things, and sometimes that's a challenge, right? Because sometimes you think to yourself like, what do I really want to do in the game, and what's gonna motivate me? Because the more fun you're having, the more fun they're having, right? And that's a big challenge with streaming, is that if you are streaming, you have to sort of like really motivate yourself to find very entertaining things that you want to grind out a lot. And if you run out of goals and things like that, then you're in a spot where other people would just be like, well, I'm just gonna play other games, but you can't really do that as a streamer, right? I suppose you can, but
it depends on what your goals are and what your community is built upon. Like a lot of communities are built on one main game, and then it's really detrimental to play a different game unless you're trying to, recruit new viewers in a different category and maybe hope to convert them to your main game later. Or, if you already have a diverse background in the community, like a big enough community, like Quinn69 can play a lot of different games, right?
Yeah.
I remember like when Gazi and Dropadusky and I did the podcast with him. I remember him telling us how frustrating it was for him at first to branch out into variety because he wasn't able to convert the viewers. But it seems to have changed completely. I mean, Quinn seems to basically play just whatever he wants and be doing well. So we have to assume that with enough work put in, we can reach those points. I mean,
that's true.
Make the good content. True. You've been doing a lot of YouTube this league.
A little bit. I have like a lot of recordings
that
I've had. Yeah, I have a lot of recordings that I've been meaning to upload, and actually, that reminds me that I should be uploading more. Because I've recorded a lot of things from Delft that I can just upload
just,
for like
directly
tricks.
Straight up recording out of the live stream, basically.
Pretty much, yeah. But like sort of treating it like a little bit more. Because like I press the start button, I'm like, all right, now I'm gonna consciously explain things more than if I was just streaming, right?
Yeah, absolutely. More like have like what is it called? Project your inner monologue outwards.
Yeah, like explain why I'm doing things, like as if it was like I'm conscious that someone could be viewing this for like the first time. Whereas generally when I'm streaming, like people know what I'm doing, and if they have a question, then they ask, right?
Right.
Because I'm not gonna re-explain a boss fight every time I go into it.
Yeah, I mean, I try to sometimes when I got a big host or something like that, I try to take into account that people are maybe not familiar with what I'm doing. Like, I explain some aspects of my build again, I explain some thoughts behind behind what I'm doing. But generally, I try to obviously not to repeat myself like 5 times on stream.
Definitely.
Sounds good. Yeah. Seeing that Balor is especially silent tonight, I think we'll let it sit there. I think that was very good. We had a lot of topics to go through, and we almost got it to the 2-hour mark. We're trying to stay under 2 hours and going towards more 1.5 hours because it's more sustainable. We don't want to burn out guests. We don't want to burn out ourselves, and we don't want to, burn out our listeners. It's like, fuck those guys. Last time I had to listen to a 3-hour episode.
I'm always just up for talking, I'm just like chilling here. You know, it's always nice to talk to you guys about like what I think and what you think and seeing your perspective and things like that. I enjoy it.
Yeah, no, it's always great to have you on because you're a very, very different individual from the other guys. You do different things. You have your own approaches. It's always great. And yeah, it would have been great to have Balor's opinion, but apparently
Yeah, definitely.
Balor was suffering from electricity outage or something like that because it's so dark and we can't hear.
It's dark there, yeah.
No, like I have no idea. I'm sure we'll find out. And if you guys are interested in hearing Balor on this podcast, then let him know and definitely tune in for the next episode of Faded Connections, which will be on the 22nd of August, and that's our last episode of Harvest, where we'll probably, conclude everything and round up everything and give our final opinion and rate 1 out of 10. And and then the episode after that will be already after the announcement. Next league will be announced, 3.12 will be announced on September 1st. So that's like I can't count, but like 22 days from now.
Yeah, 3 weeks.
Yeah. So yeah,
exciting times.
If you guys missed the episode, then make sure that you check out the episode in full on probably on Balor's YouTube if he takes it, even though he's not in the content today. But maybe on my YouTube, I don't know, but like definitely on all the audio platforms. We're on Spotify, we're on iTunes, and we're on, what was the other one? Google Podcasts, all the ones that are significant. And if you guys didn't know Tuna, if you're one of the people who were here who didn't come from Tuna when he hosted big time when we started, then definitely go check out Tuna, leave him a follow, drop a KEKW in his chat. or Pepperloth, something like that, depending on the situation. And also check out the YouTube content where you can see some interesting fights against stealth bosses. I enjoyed the Korgel video really very much.
Nice.
And the all video. You also have some really intense jams in there.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff. How are you handling the entire DMCA thing? Like, are you just listening to gaming music or underground
well, the
stuff?
thing is, when I look back at my VODs, none of them get muted, like at all, because I'm pretty much strictly listening to record labels, which by the way, I used to be a musician, right? I sort of used to release music with. I was just like electronic music musician, right? So producer, and that's also like I studied audio and audio engineering, right?
You have a SoundCloud or something?
Yeah, but it's like really, really old work. I haven't uploaded in like 4 years.
You don't essentially like. I mean, if you want to, you can post it in chat, but you can also post it in our Discord group if you want to show it to me. Yeah, I'm curious because I also make some beats here and there. Some
nice. Yo, that's cool. Stuff. But essentially, like having worked with these sort of labels, I know that they can barely afford to pay their own musicians, let alone a lawyer. And that's the sort of music I play on my stream.
Knowing that they can't do anything against it.
Well, it's not even that they can't do anything. It's that for the most part, like if I have a release on
obviously they enjoy the promotion. Labels,
it's like for them it's good because their money comes from word of mouth and organizing concerts for these kinds of people, like for people that like like they're very underground, right? So like 99% of the money literally comes from concerts. I think I've released like 3 vinyls and all of them were at a loss. So I think the record labels are not putting out the music to make the money, like on records, like the underground labels. They're doing it to promote the artists, which eventually they'll bring in to their concerts, right? And that's where the big money is.
Yeah. No one makes big money anymore selling just the music. It's all about
only the super mainstream trash, basically. Like
yeah, but they also make like a really, really small share of it all, like the most of it goes to the record labels. Yeah, all right. I think that sums it up. Do you want to any closing statement? Anything that you want to give our people on the way here, our guests on this very special evening? Say, do you had a special spot here? You're one out of like 1 out of 3 episodes with one guest, I think, in total. We had one with Gazi, where Balor and I were just joined by Gazi. We had one with Tien for a patch notes review. No, we had one with just you for a patch notes review as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Wow, then you're the only
like
person
two.
who's been the single guest twice.
Heck yeah, dude.
And the only
Practically
person
a
who's been here
co-host
with
now.
only one host. Yeah, basically. Basically a permanent installment.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate you having me on, and
No, I
thanks everyone
appreciate
who's
you
here.
coming. That's like just making time for it and ending your stream prematurely to
that's
come
cool,
and hang
man.
out. Was awesome.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for everyone in chat. Thanks for everyone listening on whatever platform you're listening. I appreciate you guys. Yeah.
Next
Thank
time
you, I
with no
appreciate it.
host, just the guest. 1 hour monologue. Awesome. Bye bye, guys. Wave in the cam.
Cheers.
Awesome.